The following episode was recorded live in front of a Zoom audience. Some of the questions to Julie Clark came from the audience themselves. Enjoy!
Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
And then I am going to put you as the spotlight. All right.
Oh, I'm on. Hello, everybody.
Give it a few. Here we go. We have participants coming already, which is funny because I've always heard that Zoom time is, people always wait a little late with Zoom time. But yay, welcome participant. Oh, welcome attendees. Hey there. This is so exciting. Give it a few seconds before we begin. How's everybody doing tonight?
Can they?
Well, they can put it in the chat. I'll do a little bit of a intro before I turn it over to Evelyn. We lost you.
No, I'm here.
I don't see your picture.
You don't need to see my. You want to see my picture?
Maybe just to begin with.
Okay, I'll put my.
Just to begin with, I'm gonna click myself off as well, but just to intro. Once the time hits 7, I will do our little preamble, and being that this is a live podcast episode, it's a little bit special. Oh, I'm so excited to see so many people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Being that this is a live podcast episode, it's a little
Oh my gosh, I have it on.
What's that? Oh, right.
Me,
You're right.
I have it on my face.
Yeah, don't do that. That gets a little weird when that happens.
Okay, we're good.
Because we're on because the Facebook Live, it's a lag. All right, it is officially 7 o'clock. All right. Well, welcome to Turn the Page Live. I am Jessica, Community Engagement Specialist, Syosset Library. I should probably change what it says on my little name thing here, but I'll change that in a second. And my librarian co-host tonight is?
It's Evelyn, Reader Services Librarian, and we're also here with Julie Clark. Julie Clark is a New York Times best-selling author of The Last Flight. And we're so excited to have her. Before
we begin, because this is a live event, I have to just give a few housekeeping rules. We are going to be doing this. Any Q&A on this is going to be live and broadcast for a podcast episode on Turn the Page, Syosset Library's podcast, at a later date. Please feel free to put your comments either in the Q&A or the chat. We will address them to Julie. That said, once again, this is live and this is a safe space. So any semblance of hate speech language, abusive language will get you removed from the event, which is not why we are here. We are here to have a wonderful time and introduce, it is a night. Interview Julie Clark. So that said, once again, Q&A and chat are open. Evelyn and I will intersperse your questions with our own. And I'm going to turn it over to Evelyn and Julie to begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica. As I said, we are here with Julie Clark, New York Times and USA Today, best-selling author. She wrote The Last Flight. That's her most current book. She does have a book that she wrote called The Ones We Choose. That's her first novel. Her reviews have been stellar. She got 3-starred reviews in Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and Library Journal. Library Journal said Clark is an exceptional writer, highly recommend for fans of thrillers, and I could not agree more. The New York Times book review said The Last Flight is thoroughly absorbing, not only because of its tantalizing plot and deft pacing, but also because of its unexpected poignancy and its satisfying, if bittersweet, resolution. The characters get under your skin. Now, Julie was born and raised in Santa Monica, California, and she teaches out there now. And we are so happy to have her. Thank you for writing this unbelievable thriller. And it also, one thing I'm missing is it's on one of the 100 best thrillers of all time. Now that must have been amazing when you got that call or saw that.
I guess. I mean, I read the list and I was like, really? Okay. I mean, you kind of are like, thanks, but that was kind of out of the blue.
I mean, especially because your book was just a few months old at the time. I mean, some of these books on there.
Fresh in everybody's mind, I think.
Yeah, but some of the books on there were like 25, 30 years old. So it was amazing to see a brand new book on there.
Yes.
I was happy to see that because I had already read it and loved it. The twists and turns are amazing. Can you hold up a copy so everybody can see
I can. Here's the cover.
Look at that great cover. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Did a great job with it. Very happy.
So tell everybody what this book is about.
Okay, so The Last Flight is a story of two women who are each desperate to escape their lives, and they want to start over somewhere else. And for different reasons, they have different reasons why they need to escape. Claire is the wife of a very powerful political man in a very powerful political family, like second only to the Kennedys. And her husband, Rory, is beloved by the country, the world. He's a, wonderful philanthropist, and he's an aspiring politician himself. But what people don't know is that behind closed doors, Rory is dangerous. He's got a temper that's escalating, and Claire has had enough. And so, Claire understands sort of the lay of the land. She knows that when you're married to a very powerful and beloved man, you don't just get to say, he's abusing me, and everybody go, oh gosh, we're so sorry. That's not really how the world works that we know. Women who speak out against powerful men are often find themselves on the receiving end of a lot of, hate themselves for simply calling out the abuse. Their lives are pulled apart, their credibility is called into question. And so Claire knew that there was just really no easy way for her to leave. And so she decides to disappear, to vanish. She has gotten a fake ID, a fake passport, fake social security number. She's squirreled away $40,000, and she's going to disappear where she thinks her husband Rory will never find her. And she is hours away from executing her plan when it all falls apart. And so she finds herself at JFK going to a campaign event in Puerto Rico, hours away from him discovering what she was about to do. And she knows that once he discovers that, she's in even greater danger. And that's when she meets Eva, who's another woman at the airport who seems to be equally desperate to escape her life. And the women hatch a plan to trade plane tickets. And Claire will fly to Oakland as Eva, and Eva will travel to Puerto Rico as Claire. And then when they each land, they're free to kind of disappear. No one will think to look for them wherever they land. But when Claire gets off the plane in Oakland, she sees that the Puerto Rico plane crashed, and she finds herself in Oakland with no money, with no place to go, and the whole world believing that she's dead. So she sees it as an opportunity, and she decides to hide out at Eva's house until things kind of calm down and she can figure out what she's going to do. But what she doesn't know is that there are people on the ground in Oakland who have noticed that Eva's gone missing, and that Eva wasn't as honest with Claire about who she was and what she was running from. So it's told in a dual timeline where we're with Claire and we're with Eva, and we're with Claire in real time moving forward, and we're with Eva in chapters that kind of tell Eva's story leading up to that meeting at the airport.
Absolutely fabulous. What inspired you to write The Last Flight?
I was really interested in exploring the idea of whether someone could actually disappear in our kind of tech-heavy life. Can we really vanish? Is it really possible to erase all traces of ourselves and start over somewhere else? And even if we could execute it, like with the right, identification and money and all of that, is it really emotionally possible? Is it something that we can do? Can we really sever all ties, or are we drawn back to, our past self and our past life and the people who we knew and cared about before. So that's how it really started out. And I thought about writing a book. I was thinking about, okay, well, I need some kind of something where everybody thinks she's dead. And so I thought maybe it'll be like a terrorist attack, like a World Trade Center kind of thing. And then I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And that's when I started thinking really seriously about the plane crash. And then thinking, okay, well, if she's not on the plane, then who is on the plane? And so at that point, Eva was born.
Do you think you have enough information now if you wanted to escape?
I do, but I wouldn't have even the slightest idea. I know what I need, and I know how to get it, but I don't know who I would go to get it. I talked to an FBI agent that I grew up with, and I asked him, like, how would I do this, or how would a person do this? And he said, the Russian mafia is really the only game in town. Like, they're the ones that are really, really good at forging things. And he said it would cost about $10,000 to do, which I don't really have. and I don't really know anybody in the Russian mafia. So,
Okay. So
I
you'll
just-
stay put.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm pretty sure I'm okay here. Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
just want to let the audience know I apologize. The chat was disabled. I believe it's fixed now, but once again, you can drop comments and questions for Julie in the in either the chat, or if for whatever reason that's still not working, you
The
can use the
Q&A works.
Q&A. Here we go. Okay, Lori Dunn says, loved the book.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
It's
All
working,
right.
Jeff?
It's
Okay.
working now. Yeah. So once again, just letting the audience know you are welcome to drop your comments and your questions in the chat. Also, if you can, please let us know how you found out about the event in the chat. Although that's not a requirement, I'm just curious. All right, carry on.
Okay. Which of the two women, Eva or Claire, did you enjoy writing about the most?
Probably Eva. I liked Claire. I liked writing Claire, but Eva is really sort of, and I think it was because she was harder to write. For a very long time, I was really struggling to kind of get into her head. And so when I finally kind of cracked that open, she just sort of became this really real, breathing, living thing in my mind. And, and so I feel like her level of sort of confidence and her level of like bravery and sass kind of, I really enjoyed writing her.
Okay.
Donna says also, I loved the book. Great page turner.
Thank you.
Did you find either one of them challenging to write?
I think Eva was challenging to write for a long time because she's written in third person. It was really hard for me to kind of get into her head. So she was definitely the hardest to write, but I think my favorite at the end. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your writing process like?
I wake up very, very early in the morning to write before I go to work. So before my kids are up, I wake up at 3:45 in the morning and write until about 6. And then go off and do, teach and be a mom and, drive people places and do all the, cook dinner and do the dishes and do all of that. By the end of the day, I'm too tired to write. So I tried to do all my really hard writing work in the morning. I think drafting is probably the hardest thing for me to do because it's just, you just don't know your characters very well. Right now, I'm in the middle of drafting my third book, and it's like, it's very wooden, and it's like moving people around on a stage. Like, okay, now you go here and say this. Okay, now something happens. And then, okay, now you go here and say this. And I don't know, something else happens. And so revision for me is really where a book kind of comes alive and I start to really get to know the characters. So I generally draft pretty quickly. I started drafting my third book maybe a month ago, and I should probably have a first draft by December 1st. That's the goal. But again, it's not good and it's not complete, and subplots aren't developed and characters aren't developed and kind of the character arcs and all of that aren't developed, but at least it's something to work with. Once I've got all the ingredients there, then I can start working with them.
With all the twists and turns, it must be difficult. You have to make sure everything comes together.
Yeah.
Do you do a board We've spoken to other authors
I've
that have
tried that,
bored
and then I generally don't look at them again. So,
Okay.
with the last flight and trying to get Eva and Claire's story arcs to line up as much as possible, where they're sort of climaxing at the same point and kind of racing toward the end at the same point. I did use note cards, and I did spend a lot of time just working on Claire's chapters, and then a lot of time just working on Eva's chapters. And then I broke the chapters down into note cards and started kind of placing them and kind of where I need Eva finding this out at this point because Claire needs to know it in the chapter afterward kind of thing, and sort of trying to get the chapters lined up.
We have two questions. The first one is from Beth, who says, hi, Julie. I'm Beth from New Jersey, and Beth found out about this event from Renee's Reading Club. We love
cool.
Renee's Reading Club. Beth says, I loved The Last Flight. Have you been approached about making it into a movie? Also, are you working on your next book?
Yes to both. We are, my film agents are talking to producers every day. The film industry is just really, slowed down a lot. So, but we're definitely working on it and have a lot of very interested people. So fingers crossed that we'll have some good news to report soon. But yes, I get that question a lot. A lot of people are like, we need it on TV. We need it in a movie.
It's definitely cinematic. There's no doubt about it. But your first book, The Ones We Chose,
yes,
also
that's been
was
optioned,
right?
Yes, that was optioned for television with Lionsgate. Yes.
So what's going on with that? Any process?
No, not right now. They option it and then they, they just like to do their process. I try to stay out of it, whether they're working on writers or whether they're working on a script, like that's not, they've optioned it and it's theirs to kind of do what they want with. And so I'm happy to hear updates, but I'm busy writing the next book. That's my job, is to write books. So once it moves over to Hollywood, I'm sort of like, best of luck and call me if you need anything. But otherwise,
you're not interested in writing this. You're not interested in writing the screenplays, huh?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah.
We have one more question from Lori. Did you write each character's story first and then arrange how you presented them, or did you write them simultaneously?
I wrote them simultaneously. I wrote the book from beginning to end with both chapters kind of flipping back and forth. But that being said, after I wrote it, there was a significant amount of rearranging, rewriting, taking things out, adding things in. And even though I wrote it sequentially to begin with, I did end up working on just Claire chapters and just Eva chapters, and then having to redistribute all of the chapters, making sure that they all line up. So I did both. But when I originally drafted it, I drafted it straight through, alternating back and forth between the two women. Yes.
No, I don't. I think you might have answered this, but I'm not 100% sure how you mapped out all the twists and turns, because there's so much. How do you keep it all straight in your head? And like,
it's hard. And the older I get, the worse my memory gets. And the longer a book takes to write, especially in the drafting stage, 3 weeks later, I can't remember what I wrote in chapter 1. I have to go back and reread it because I don't remember. I don't know it well enough. But by the time, I got to, the revision process of The Last Flight, like I was living inside of that book at that point. I wasn't forgetting things. But, keeping it all straight, you have to think a lot about kind of pacing and beats and what kind of the typical structure of a book that readers want to keep reading. And the ingredients to that are to have, a lot of short chapters, to leave your reader in one POV needing to know what will come next. And so that they are reluctant to put the book down because they need to get back to that character. And if you can get them feeling that way about both POV characters, even better. And just, making sure that you have all the ingredients of, launching the book in the right place, making sure that something major happens in the middle of the book that changes everybody's direction and sets them on a new path. And then, that all is lost moment at the very end where, things are about to go terribly, terribly wrong. But of course, your main character, pulls it out at the end.
Okay. I would like to know how you chose locations.
I lived and worked in Berkeley right out of college. I worked at the university. I worked in the athletic department there. So, go Bears. And so I loved working there. I loved that time in my life. It's very special to me. I look back on it fondly. I wish I could go back and relive that time in my life. But so I always knew I wanted to set a book in Berkeley simply because I really just love spending time there in my mind, in person. I went back in 2018 and kind of walked the campus again and took a lot of photographs and tried to figure out where Kelly's coffee shop is and where Eva and Liz lived, and, kind of retraced my path when I lived there, and also kind of traced Claire's path and Eva's path as they're navigating the campus and walking the streets of Berkeley. So it was a selfish reason why I set the book there, but I think it worked out. I think it worked out well.
What
Donna,
about Puerto Rico? Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Donna says, what was your path to becoming a writer? Did you always know that you wanted to be a writer?
I always wanted to write. I tried writing in my 20s and I didn't really feel like I had anything to say. And so I kind of set it aside and got my teaching credential and taught and got married and had kids and got divorced. And, life was just really busy, filled with just work and kids and life. And, I kind of realized, though, that writing was something that I still wanted to do. It was still on my list of things that I wanted to do. And so when I was about 43 or so, 42, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and write a book, see what happens. I feel like I have a story to tell. I could try to tell it. And so I wrote it. I wrote a novel. It took me about 8 weeks to put a draft down. I wrote every day. It was super fun. I couldn't believe how much fun it was. And then I revised it and queried it, looking for a literary agent, and nobody wanted that book. And so I thought, well, if I could write one book, I can write another book, right? So I had another idea. So I sat down and wrote that book. And that was the book that became my debut. And that was the book that got me my agent and my publishing contract. And it kind of just goes from there,
Well, very nice. Lucky.
Yeah,
very lucky.
Yeah. It was. I mean, I published my first book when I was 47, I think. 47. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's your second career.
Yeah, I mean, and I love teaching. People ask, are you going to retire? Are you going to write full time? I love teaching. Why would I retire? I like getting paid regularly every month. I like having health insurance. These are things that are important to me.
Yes.
And, I have 2 kids that are edging up toward college pretty soon. And so, why am I going to say no thanks to your paycheck? I think I'll keep it, I have about 8 years or so until I can retire at a reasonable pension. So I'm just going to stick it out. I love it,
Yeah.
And doing both is really lovely, because writing is something where everybody in my world is in my control. So when I'm tired and frustrated after a day at school where nobody's following directions, and I swear I told you to turn that in on Tuesday, and why did nobody turn it in on Tuesday? And then I come home and everybody does what I want them to do in my books. And then the flip side is that, publishing can be very slow, very isolating, very frustrating industry to work in, where there's no rhyme or reason for why anything good or bad happens. And so I love being able to go into school and just turn off that stress of why didn't I get that review? Why didn't I land on that list? And just be with kids. It's like playing every day, you're really having fun, and your mind just gets turned off, because it's really impossible to think about anything other than teaching when you're teaching. You just can't. And that's a gift too. So I like that. It uses 2 different parts of my brain, which I like.
What do you teach?
5th grade.
Oh.
We have 2 more questions from the audience.
Yes.
Lori would like to know, do you think about people and base character traits on them? Eva was so multidimensional. I found her so real. And then Daisy, we will get to your question afterwards, because I would like to know this as well.
I don't base characters on people I know. That's really hard, because when I try to do that, I end up actually writing that person, and that could be bad for my friendships. But what I end up doing is thinking, well, what would I do in that situation? How would I feel? What decisions would I make in that situation? And that sort of helps me push people forward. But a lot of who my characters turn out to be is sometimes based on who I need them to be. I needed Eva I needed Eva to have the childhood that she had so that she would make the choices that she made. So she started as somebody who, is kind of making recreational drugs for the college kids at Berkeley. And, then I back up and think, okay, well, how would she know how to do that? Well, okay, maybe she's a chemistry prodigy. Oh yeah, let's have her be a chemistry prodigy. And then I back it up like, well, how did she end up making drugs? Something must have happened. And so you kind of back up, you start with what you need. I need her making drugs in Berkeley. And then you back up and start kind of creating that backstory from there, all the way back to her childhood, because what would make a person make decisions the way Eva did? Well, her childhood did, obviously.
Daisy would like to know, how do you function with so little sleep?
I get lots of sleep. I just go to bed early. So, I'm usually asleep by 8:45 or 9 o'clock at night. I'm an early bird and I wake up early. So I like to think that I am living on New York time in Los Angeles.
That's
and
pretty good.
My agent often calls me at 6 a.m. because she knows I'm up. She knows I've been up for hours. Yeah.
Wow. Do you set an alarm, or that's just the way your body?
I have an alarm. No, I mean,
okay.
I set an alarm 3:45. It goes off, and there are some days when I'm already up because my body wakes up at 3:30, and I'm like, I might as well get up. 15 more minutes isn't going to make or break me. And other times it's like pulling me, pulling me out. It just depends.
And I bet Jess would like to know: are you a big coffee drinker?
Oh yes, I have a giant pot next to me. I write in bed because if you're going to have to get up that early and work, you're going to work in bed. You not have to get up and sit in somewhere cold.
You rarely, if ever, see me without a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. I absolutely have to have coffee in the morning. Absolutely.
All the time. Evelyn, how much coffee do you think I consume?
A lot. I really more than the average human being, that's for sure.
Yes, coffee is pretty much running through my veins.
Yeah.
Well, if you get up at 3:45, you definitely need coffee. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable. There's been times where, I had headache issues and shoulder issues, and my doctor was like, you should maybe think about giving up coffee. And I was like, that's not going to happen.
It's funny because when I was pregnant, I had twins, and I had to drink, was it a gallon of water a day? It was a lot of water. Mm-hmm. And I was allowed 1 cup of coffee a day, and I gladly took that. But I was always walking around with these giant jugs of water. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that was over and my pregnancy was over, I immediately switched to coffee. So the water became coffee, which is just constantly on me. Yeah. I think I've been told that nobody would recognize me if I did not have a cup of coffee with me.
Okay, so I asked the question, how did you choose locations? You told us about Berkeley. Why did you choose Puerto Rico as the place that she was going to?
I needed a few things to happen, and Puerto Rico is the one place that fit them all. So I knew I wanted to set the book in Berkeley, and so from New York to Berkeley is about a 6-ish hour flight, depending. I needed the plane to have crashed and hit the news by the time Claire lands. So I needed the other plane to be going, the plane that crashed should be going somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere within, a few hours of New York, not 6 hours. And I needed it to crash over water, because if you've read the book, you know why I needed that to happen. And so I also didn't want to fiddle around with passports. Okay. So I didn't want to send them somewhere where they were going to deplane and need a passport. So I picked Puerto Rico because the women don't look alike. So I didn't want it to be Eva showing Claire's passport and hoping that it worked. So that's why I picked Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were different looking, right? They were.
Yeah, Claire's dark brown hair and Eva was a, pixie blonde. So yeah.
Okay, so what actresses do you see playing the roles of Eva and Claire?
I don't know. I know like 2 actresses. I know like Reese Witherspoon and like Julia Roberts. And you know,
Okay.
I am not, for someone that grew up in Santa Monica and Hollywood,
Right.
I do not, you know, I'm the worst. When I talk to producers and they're trying to, you know, cast it, they're naming people and I'm like, oh, great, great. And I'm Googling them like, who the heck is that? I don't even know. Yeah.
So you're not a TV or a movie person, I guess.
I enjoy watching TV and I enjoy movies, but I don't necessarily know who all the stars are that are in them. You know, like if you were to say, you know, the one who played so-and-so on The Office, then I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I know her.
Right.
But if you were to tell me her name, I wouldn't know.
We have some input and some questions from Lori. Lori, well, I'm going to actually bring Lori's second comment first because it's actually they are both questions. Okay, the second one first says, some people in my book club thought that you had Claire cut her hair to look like Eva. Was this the case, or was she just changing her appearance in general?
I think she was doing both. You know, I mean, Claire didn't set out to become Eva, but she realized pretty quickly that her life would be simpler if people thought she was Eva. And so one of the things that she decided to do was to cut her hair and dye her hair so that if she needed to present some kind of identification for whatever reason, she could maybe pass as Eva. You know, hair is a great, they do it on Saturday Night Live all the time. All they do is put on a Hillary wig and suddenly they're Hillary, or, you know, they put on a Kamala wig and all of a sudden they're Kamala. And so the hair is sort of the one thing that, you know, impersonators really mimic to make themselves appear to be somebody else. And so Claire decided to do that as both to hide, to kind of not look like herself anymore, but also to maybe look a little bit closer to Eva just in case she needed to.
Lori would also like to know, are you sharing the writing process with your students, and are you seeing budding authors in your classroom?
It's tricky because I write for adults, and so I try not to spend a whole lot of, I'm an author and I've written books, you know, because then the next question is, oh, can we read your books? And the answer is no. You can't.
No.
And so I try not to do a lot of that, but they do know that I'm a published author. They do know that I've written books, and I have shared, like, you know, you think that your, you know, 5 comments on your persuasive essay was taxing, like, here are my editor's notes. And I flip through pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of like markup, you know, and their eyes just get kind of big and they're like, we'll do the 5 comments, you know, it's fine.
What are you reading now? What type of books do you like to read?
I'm reading the new Alice Hoffman, which is terrific.
Yeah, I loved it too.
It's real. I'm almost done with it.
Magic Lessons.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, I love her writing.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a slower read for me than I'm used to. Mostly I read a lot of thrillers, and those are really fast paced. But I'm loving just kind of going back into this world every day, you know.
Yeah, she's writing her 4th book in the series now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
I don't know what
the others.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
no.
You have to read the others.
I know. So now I mean, I've read the synopses for the other 2, and I thought, well, how lucky am I that I'm actually reading the prequel to the prequel first.
Right.
Yeah. So then I'll read the prequel next, and then I'll read the original book third.
Right. And then Rules of Magic, which was that was my favorite. I love that.
That was your favorite? Okay.
Yeah, that one was really.
Is that the next one or no?
No, that's the third one. It's the story of the children.
Okay.
It's really, her writing is just fabulous. I really love her.
I believe she's from Long Island too.
I think she is.
Yes, she's.
I believe she is. Yep. She's in Boston now, but I'm pretty sure she grew up down here on the island. So how do you think the Me Too movement relates to this book?
It really heavily impacted the book, actually. I started writing it in 2017 and was deep into revisions right around the Kavanaugh hearings and kind of watching all of that unfold on TV and sort of seeing the backlash that Dr. Blasey Ford faced, and telling her story made me sort of realize, oh, that's what my book is about, you know, and I'm never really satisfied with a draft until I know what the book is really about. You know, there's for me, I love books that are plot heavy, but I also need books that have characters with an emotional arc and kind of a bigger, deeper, sometimes in life connection. And I was having a hard time finding it with this one until I started kind of watching all of these people start speaking out about powerful men. And I started listening to podcasts of, women who were in abusive marriages with powerful men. And it really made me think like, okay, that's what this story is about. This is a story about female power and female empowerment, and how a woman's truth doesn't weigh as much as a man's, and that women's credibility is always called into question, even when we have no benefit and we have no benefit to lie, we're still called into question. And so I wanted my book to be about two strong women, neither of whom are victims. I wanted to write about women who were smart and savvy and fighting back. I didn't want either of my characters to be mentally ill or unstable or have substance abuse problems. I mean, Eva's a drug dealer, but she doesn't do the drugs herself. She's too smart for that. And so, I wanted the women in my book to reflect the women that I know in life. I don't really know a lot of crazy mentally ill people. I have a lot of really smart, strong friends who have gone through a lot of hard things and have come out on the other side stronger and fiercer. And those are the people that I wanted to write about in this book. And so I sort of combined the two.
Now, how did you compare Rory's family to the Kennedy family? I know you
Only-
made mention of that.
Yeah, only in power only.
Okay.
I would not have there's a reference to something that happened to Rory in his past that kind of sort of shadows like a Ted Kennedy, Chappaquiddick kind of thing, but not really other than that. I mean, I really didn't want the only reference in the book is when Claire is talking about how how do you think the world would respond if like Carolyn Bessette had come out and said that JFK Jr. was beating her, right? And like her friend Petra says something like, "Are you kidding me?" They'd have whole shows talking about that, but I don't believe that. I believe they had a happy marriage. I would like to live in a world where JFK Jr. was happily married for the number of years that he had with her.
I'd like to live in a world that he was still here.
Me too. That's where I would like to think that of like they are Kennedy in power only, but not at all in temperament.
Right. Okay. Now, Claire and Eva were complete strangers.
Mhm.
They had they were complete strangers.
Yes.
What favor and impulsive favor have you ever done for a stranger?
Oh gosh. I've paid for people's groceries before, I've done that, but nothing. I mean, people ask me, well, would you trade plane tickets? Are you kidding me? No way I would not, but that's the fun of writing fiction, is writing characters to do things that you would never in a million years do yourself. Never in a million years.
Right. Yep. They were strong characters, and
yeah,
they both thought they were getting a good deal.
They did. And, they both were trying to save each other in a way. So, they were trying to save themselves first and foremost, but I do think that both of them sort of saw that a side benefit was helping another woman in need.
Okay. Besides for the research that you did with the FBI agent, how about all the drug information? Where did you research all of that? Your good friend's a drug dealer?
Yeah. Yeah. No, the same FBI agent who helped me with the passport and stuff was also an undercover drug agent. So he knew a lot about that too. And so I had a lot of conversations with him about, his work as an undercover and, sort of what a drug enforcement agency officer would do and say and feel. And, a lot of the things that Agent Castro says in the book are things that my friend Todd said to me, so, when I said, well, how would you talk somebody like Eva into, how would you answer the question, why me? Why are you trying to help me? And he had a lot to say about that. He had definite tactics and things that he would say and ways that he would approach her that Agent Castro definitely did.
Okay, we have a question. It is from Lori. Having them switch tickets once they passed security was so clever. I would never have thought of someone doing that. but it's certainly possible. How did that idea come to you?
Well, I knew that I wanted one of them to die and one of them to live, and I needed them to be in a situation where it was kind of questionable. But I don't really remember how the idea occurred to me that they would trade plane tickets, but I do remember realizing and talking to some people that I know who are flight attendants and work in airport security. All of them said, yeah, I guess you could. I mean, it used to be a long time ago, you used to have to show your ID at the gate, but somehow they stopped doing that when they stopped letting people who didn't have tickets through security. And that, thanks a lot, because that there wouldn't be a book. There wouldn't be a book without that rule change. I don't know what it would have done. Yeah.
That's that's curious. Now that I'm thinking about it, that is true.
I recall. I mean, I'm not a world traveler. I don't travel a ton. And when my kids were little, there was definitely a big chunk of years where I didn't travel at all. And so I do remember traveling with my oldest when he was just a baby. And I remember having to show my ID to the gate attendant. And then fast forward, 15 years, and I'm drafting this book, and friends of mine who travel a lot more than me are like, no, we don't do that anymore. We haven't done that for years. And it's like, really? Oh,
yeah, they just take your boarding pass.
Yeah. I mean, and you just
Not
need to
that
have
I've
a phone
traveled
and
anymore,
scan
yeah.
it. So it's even more like, I'm hearing though that Delta and some airlines are doing some facial recognition stuff, but I don't know if that's
there's gotta be some behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I vaguely remember, and I was, it was 21, 22. I was 21 or 22 when 9/11 happened. And I vaguely remember travel beforehand, probably because travel post 9/11 has become so much that you have to remember, okay, I need to slip my shoes off. I need to do this. I need to do that. But, it really was very, like, okay, off you go. Oh, you're meeting someone at the gate. Hope it's romantic.
Yeah. I remember meeting people at the gate. It was romantic.
There was, I remember, when you'd go down to Florida, there was like the grandparent room, and all the grandparents were hanging out in this room with like a glass. Well, there was one big glass wall, and you could. Oh, is that? I hate to use this analogy, but it's like looking, at like if you're shopping for a puppy, like is that one? Is that one yours? That one? Oh, that one's jumping up and down. Those are your grandparents. But not anymore at all. But I hadn't thought about the ID thing.
I'm very fortunate, and I think at some point they'll tighten up security again where you can't trade tickets. But I've managed to slip the book in between.
Probably because they'll read your book and they'll be
like,
oh my,
this is a big hole in security. We didn't change this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure that will happen, but yeah.
Have your children read your book?
My oldest has read it. My youngest has not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my oldest is 15, so he's read it.
How about your first book? Did he read that one too? No.
No.
Do you want to tell people about that one?
Yeah, that book is a different book. It's not a thriller. It's definitely a page turner. It's a family drama, and it's about a geneticist who conceives her son via donor, and it's about how her son kind of is struggling with not knowing who his father is. I did a ton of science research in this book because I have these interstitial chapters that sort of give you some science background stuff that sort of helps you sort of understand the character and the story. So I did a lot of science research. So with this book, I decided I'm not going to do any science research. And yes, Eva's a chemist, but I'm certainly not going to be doing any chemistry research because I really did dive into genetics and, DNA and all of those things because their donor kind of lands in their life unexpectedly, and she has to make these decisions about what is she going to say, and how is she going to reveal it, and what choices she has to make. And so it's a different book, but it's definitely readers have all said like they couldn't put it down. So
I like the cover of that one. It's got a Ferris wheel on the front, right? Is that Yeah, I really like that one.
What gave you the idea for that one? That's a really interesting premise.
I wanted to write about a single mom because I'm a single mom, but I felt like single moms who were single by choice, like who conceived their kids via donor, aren't really represented in books. And so I have the single mom experience, but I had to do a lot of research and reach out to a lot of people who actually lived that experience to find out, what it's like for them. And long story short, it's different for everybody. Some kids are like, whatever, don't care, and other kids really do search and ache for knowing their genetic background. And so it's kind of depends on the kid, depends on the family, depends on genetics, I think, really, when it comes down to. But it was fascinating to me to learn about how genetics really plays a role in how we live and how we function, and how events in our parents' lives and our grandparents' lives still show up in our own DNA. That to me was the most fascinating thing. And so kind of weaving that idea through the book was really fun. I really liked that a lot.
Okay, and that book's called The Ones We
The Ones
Choose.
We Choose, yes.
All of those people listening. I just want to mention that The Last Flight, the ebook, is available on Hoopla for all of our patrons, and the ebook is also available on Overdrive. Now, the audiobook, did you have a choice? I'm a big audiobook person. I did not listen to this one on audiobook. I completely read this one.
Yes.
Did you have a choice in who your audiobook narrator was?
Yeah, they sent us choices. They say, like, here are 3 choices for Claire. Here are 3 choices for Eva. And so I listen to the samples and try to figure out like which one sounds the most like the character to me. It's really hard though, because everybody's personal tastes in audiobooks is very different. So what appeals to me is the exact opposite that doesn't appeal to somebody else. So, I try to pick people that don't have any, don't have a voice that kind of grates on my ears. And I try to pick, and with this one, I had to pick 2 people who sounded different enough so that you wouldn't be like, wait, who's talking? So that was challenging for me.
Okay. How about the cover? I love the cover.
Yeah.
Did you have a choice in that? Did you have
we have what's called cover approval.
Okay.
And what that means is that they come up with a cover and they show it to you and they say, what do you think? We love it. And a lot of authors don't love their initial cover. And so usually a lot of times the publisher will have to go back and rework the cover because, publishers really, this is the face of an author's book. Like this is sort of like the clothes they put on to go out into the world. And they want authors to feel good about how their book is dressed. And so publishers will do a lot to make sure an author is happy with the cover. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into play with covers as well, where, there's marketing and there's, data and numbers and, shelf placement and all of these things that like they are really expert on. So at the end of the day, you also have to kind of trust your publisher to know what they're doing, to know that, this year teal books are really hot. Everybody's buying the teal books, or this year red books are really hot. Everybody's buying the red books, and they sort of know the trends more than we do. So even though you can kind of look at your cover and go, I love it or I hate it, you do have to trust that they know what they're doing. Luckily, with this book, I saw the cover and loved it immediately. I mean, there was just no question that this was exactly the kind of cover that I was hoping for. So they didn't even have to go back for a second draft. My editor sent it over and we loved it.
Okay, hold up the cover for everybody to see.
Yeah.
That's really interesting what you say just about the colors and everything, because I do see that when I look at books on the shelves, that certain periods of time, it's almost like running with a theme. And like sometimes, and of course when you read the books, they're not the same book, but like if you're thinking of books in covers, you might get them mixed up because it's like, oh, it was that book that just had the silhouette of a woman on it, or was it that one? So that is true. It does. They do come in themes, like
yes. And the sales and marketing teams are really smart about how they package a book and how they market it and how, shelf placement and all kinds of metrics that they measure that are I'm just like, ooh, it's red, I love it, but it's a lot
Well,
more complicated.
there's a meme going around, and it's years and years old, and it's bookstore and library meme, which is a display of books,
Hmm.
and it will say something like, I don't remember what it was called, but the cover was blue, and it was a bunch
Right,
of blue books.
all blue books. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I've seen that, and it's true. I mean, that the color is kind of what you remember first.
Yeah.
So how is getting this book out to the public in a pandemic been for you?
Interesting. I had a whole book tour that I was really excited to go on. I was going to go to, 5 or 6 cities and do a whole thing, go to New York and, all of that. So I was really looking forward to that. I was lucky enough that I got to go to Winter Institute back in January, which was the independent booksellers' big, massive convention every year. And so my publisher sent me to that, and that was amazing. And I just saw this morning in an email that this year's Winter Institute will be all virtual, which is,
Oh, wow.
I just remember thinking like, gosh, I'm so glad I got to do that. And I did get to do a couple in-person events. I did an event with the Southern California booksellers in San Diego on March 8th, I remember, because we literally shut down that week.
Right.
Everything
Yeah.
stopped. And
But the
that
book
was
didn't come out. The book came out way after
came
that.
out in June. Yeah. And we
Right.
pushed it. It was supposed to come out June 2nd, and we pushed the publication date back. They were still trying to save some of my events. We still didn't know like how is this going to work? Maybe it will be over by then.
Wishful thinking.
Right. We didn't know. I mean, we were making these decisions in March. We didn't know if we'd be back to school in May. We didn't know if, everything would be open in June. It would be gone. We had no idea. And so, but the truth is that I'm a homebody. I am not, I'm not an extrovert. I'm definitely an introvert that enjoys getting out and talking to people. But then I come home and I'm like, whew, I need rest, And so, the virtual events have actually worked out really well for me because I don't have to worry about, who's going to watch my kids while I travel here and there. I don't need to, I can literally say, I'm going out to do a book event now, please text me if you need anything, but don't come out. And the boys are like, okay, and I just, put on my nice top and I come on out to my office and I do my thing and I go back inside, and there's no airport, there's no security, there's no, the cab is late to the bookstore. I miss talking to people in person. I miss signing books and talking to readers in person. That I do miss. But I also see that the upside is that I get to do an event with a public library in New York.
Right.
That I probably wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
It's been great. I'll say that much about this. We, and I'm sure other libraries and bookstores have found that this has been a real good chance to test virtual programming. I think a lot of us have been reluctant to do it before, because everything is different and you do want people in the building. And I cannot wait to have people in the building again. However, it's good to know that we can do this, and this will, I think it's going to continue because
I hope so.
Why not?
It costs me nothing to do this. It costs me nothing. And it's amazing. And the thing too is that, for my launch events, I had friends from all over the country coming to my launch event, which would have never happened. We had probably over 100 people. And that's amazing that so many people from all over the country, friends from Michigan and friends from Florida and friends from Texas and friends from Arizona, like they were able to be there. And so, if we had been live in a bookstore, we wouldn't have been able to be there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a give or a take. And, I'm really lucky. My publisher just did a phenomenal job marketing the book, promoting the book, supporting the book, getting it into readers' hands, getting it into reviewers' hands. Like my pandemic experience, I think, was atypical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm incredibly fortunate that, I have the team that I have and the people who work so hard at Sourcebooks to do this work every day. They're amazing at what they do. I just, I shake my head. My author friends are like, wow, your team. Yeah, my team. They're amazing. So, I think that it was a challenging time to release books for everybody, but of the experience, I would say mine was definitely great.
That's wonderful. You are very, very lucky. And I want to say that I don't even remember where I read about your book, but the minute I read about it, I said, this sounds so fabulous. I have to read this book right away.
Yeah.
So yes,
cool.
they did a great job getting it out there. They really did.
They really did. And they're very numbers and data driven. So they're all about the data. They're all about, looking at the numbers and making decisions based on the numbers. And that's just a really smart way to work, I think.
Yeah. Somehow I didn't end up with the arc though, which is unusual.
That's too bad because the arc was amazing. They had a special pull out with the windows, the airplane windows that open and close.
Now I'm even more upset that I didn't have the arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, somehow I missed that one. They didn't get that one to me.
Oh, I know. Well,
yeah, but I read it after it came out. But as soon as I read, I said, "This is for me. This is the book for me." And it's just so great. And you said, the paperback's going to be out in May.
May. Mm-hmm.
But for those of you who aren't purchasing books and are using our library, come and get it. I'll be happy. I told her we have 4 copies. They're all out and there's holds. So we'll be happy to place you on a hold list. But if you're interested in reading it right now, it is available on Hoopla. And any of our patrons, you can just go to Hoopla, go to our library page and find Hoopla on there and download the book and start reading tonight if you haven't read it already. So I highly, highly recommend it. I think it's on the Goodreads, right? Shouldn't everybody be voting for it?
No, it didn't. No, didn't make the list. No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I've had a lot of really great opportunities with this book, and I have some more really great opportunities with this book coming up that I can't speak of right now. So I feel like, there's plenty for everybody. I don't need to hog all the opportunities. So I'm happy with what I've gotten.
That's very nice that you're not greedy, that you're willing to share everything. Good. We're very happy for you. That's just wonderful.
Thank you.
Do we have any more audience questions or comments before we close out? I'm very happy to see all the people who showed up tonight. And made it virtually to Syosset, depending on if you're in Syosset or if you're somewhere else. Okay. Nothing at the moment. All right.
Okay. I think you really answered everything I have. Thank you so much.
Thank
Julie,
you.
we are so happy that you were able to join us tonight on Turn the Page Live. And it's also on Facebook Live right now, if anybody's watching it on that.
And this will be broadcast on Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast at a later date. You can find us. You can either go to our website, syossetlibrary.org, and you'll find a link to it. We're hosted. We're hosted by Blueberry. We're SPL Turn the Page. There are several other podcasts called Turn the SPL. Oh, we have a question. Hang on a second. Marion, what is your question? Please, could you type it in the chat if you have a question?
I think she's just saying hi.
Oh, okay. She raised her hand. That's cool. Hi, Marion. Wherever podcasts are, we're available everywhere. SPL Turn the Page, Syosset Public Library. Want to continue, Evelyn?
I just want to thank everybody for coming on, and especially Julie Clark. And we so look forward to your next book, Julie.
Thank you.
Definitely will have you on again. I know, you're not local, so we'll definitely try and do it virtual. Unless, of course, you do want to take a trip.
Yeah. Huh? Hopefully we'll be traveling by then.
Yeah, I was about to say, we have so many virtual friends now who we've decided when this is all over, we're all gonna, when this all blows over, we're gonna grab a glass of wine together or lunch or something. So.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll meet. We'll meet at the Javits Center for BEA, which we all love.
I would love. I was supposed to go. I was so disappointed. I mean, I was sad about my book tour, but that one really hurt.
Right.
Missing BEA really hurt.
Have you been? Did you?
No, but it was my first time.
You're in for a treat. Hopefully
I'll get to go again.
Yes.
All up to my publisher.
It's really a treat. BA is one of my favorite days.
Yeah.
So, yep. So I'd like to close this chapter of Turn the Page. I'm Evelyn, Reader Services Librarian from Syosset Public Library, and I'm here with my co-worker,
Jessica, Community Engagement Specialist, Syosset Public Library.
and our very special guest was
Me,
Julie.
Julie Clark.
Thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It was nice to meet you all. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
reading.
writing such a wonderful book.
Oh, thank you.
Loved it.
All
Loved it
right,
so much.
everybody, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye. Be well, everybody.
All right.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.